Well, hey, everybody, welcome back to the Chronic Inflammation Summit. Today, we're going to be talking about inflammaging and the role of inflammation in the acceleration of aging. And I've got my friend, Dr. Michael Murray. And Dr. Murray is one of the world's leading authorities on natural medicine. He's published over 30 books featuring natural approaches to health. He's a graduate, former faculty member, and serves on the board of Bastyr University in Seattle, Washington. For the past 35 years, Dr. Murray has been compiling a massive database of original scientific studies from the medical literature. He has personally collected over 65,000 articles from the scientific literature, which provides strong evidence on the effectiveness of diet, vitamins, minerals, herbs, and other natural measures in the maintenance of health and the treatment of disease. It's from this constantly expanding database that Dr. Murray provides the answers on health and healing on drmurray.com. And his most recent book is The Longevity Matrix: How to Live Better, Stronger, and Longer. And we're going to talk about some of the topics that he goes over in that book. So, Dr. Murray, welcome to the summit.
Well, thank you. It's a great topic.
Yeah, for sure. And so, we know that inflammation is really at the root cause of chronic disease. And in your book, you go through a lot of different theories, and signs that people are not aging successfully. So let's start with the major signs and symptoms that one might experience that would tell them they're not aging very well.
Well, yeah, if you're aging on the outside, you're aging on the inside. So I think physical appearance goes a long way. How old are you, David? Because you look
39.
Yeah, so I'm 60. I'm 62.
Yeah, you look great.
So I'm doing a good job fighting the aging process. So I think the way a person looks goes a long way in evaluating how they're faring against the aging process. But it's not foolproof, right? Because we've all seen people that look really young, but yet maybe had a short lifespan. So
yeah,
there's more to consider.
So outside looks. How about pain? Some of the other signs.
Yeah, I mean, energy levels.
Yeah.
I think energy levels, and I think there's certain conditions I think that people should be concerned about. One is dementia. When I first started studying medicine, the rate of Alzheimer's disease and dementia was very low in people 80 plus. It was less than 2%. Now, it's the latest data is almost 50%. So the reward for living longer for a lot of people is they live longer, but they lose their mind. And most of us, baby boomers and younger, have witnessed people that we love learning their ability to function and think. And
right.
I think for a lot of reasons that has to be one of the key areas of concern. When I look at what contributes to a short lifespan, and we look at inflammation, some of the big contributors to inflammation are poor blood sugar control. So obesity, type 2 diabetes, poorly controlled type 1 diabetes, these all accelerate the aging process by, in most cases, leading to excess inflammation. Heart disease. We know that heart disease is linked to inflammation. C-reactive protein is something that people need to measure. It's a sign of chronic inflammation. And higher C-reactive protein levels are associated not only with a dramatic increased risk for cardiovascular disease, but also many forms of cancer, diabetes, and accelerated aging. So it's an inexpensive lab test that should be part of every yearly physical. Vitamin D3 is something else that we're learning more and more is so important for so many reasons, especially during this COVID time. And so I think that that's another simple, inexpensive test. If we look at the optimal range, we want it to be between 60 and 80 nanograms per ml. What they've showed is that with COVID is that if people have below 20, that's almost, if they get COVID, it's almost a death sentence.
Wow.
And if they're above 34, they pretty much might get it, but they don't go to the ICU and they don't die from it. And so that 34 number is kind of the threshold, but I'm saying it's got to be even higher than that. So now why is this important for aging? Well, vitamin D3 is a very effective tool to help reduce telomere shortening. And we have these end caps of our DNA, and every time cells in our body replicate, it gets shorter. And the shorter the telomeres get, the more chance for errors and for improper replication. And so vitamin D can preserve those telomeres and help people conceivably age slower. So vitamin D3 levels are very important for fighting inflammation and fighting aging, and supporting the immune system, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, for sure. Vitamin D3 really helps with keeping inflammation under control. And we know that with COVID, people are in a hyperinflamed state, meaning that they have higher levels of inflammation to begin with. When they encounter the virus, their body is not able to control inflammation. It just creates these cytokine storms and really damages their lungs and causes pneumonia and all kinds of issues.
You know, David, it's interesting because, when we're talking about Inflammaging and we look at who's most susceptible to suffering the worst from COVID-19 or dying from it, it's people that have Inflammaging.
Yeah.
People with diabetes, high blood pressure, kidney disease, obesity, diabetes, poorly controlled blood sugar levels. These all contribute to this Inflammaging, and there's strategies that we can utilize that would really be helpful for these people. So we've got some extra incentive right now to get those inflammatory processes under control.
Yeah, totally. And you mentioned C-reactive protein. Where do you like to see the levels? What's kind of your optimal range there?
I like to see it as close to zero as possible.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure you're like me, and you get it checked at least once a year. My levels are near zero, and I think that I have no pain, no inflammation. When I had like a little hangnail the other day, and I realized how much that bothered me. I hate to think what would happen if I had any sort of chronic issue. And life is meant to be lived. And the title of my book, The Longevity Matrix, the idea of a matrix is that it's multiple systems coming together to work harmoniously. And that's how our body is. And the idea is to help people live better now, because if you live better now, it sets the stage for living longer. And getting that inflammation under control is really a key step in helping your body feel better now. Now, the other part of the subtitle is stronger, because I think, building muscle mass is really important, and helping cells throughout the body be stronger and more resistant to inflammation and cellular damage. That's what I mean by stronger. If the cells are more resilient, they're going to respond to threats, and they're going to quell, they're going to put out any fire of inflammation. And if you take care of living better now and focusing on helping improve your strength and helping improve the strength of every cell in your body, you're naturally going to live longer. So that's the premise.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. And in your book, you talk about many of the different theories of aging. You explain the free radical theory of aging. Can you go over that?
Yeah, and it's kind of like aging's like this. Do you know the parable of the blind men and the elephant?
I don't think I've heard that one.
Oh yeah, so it's a classic parable. So they took 7 blind men and they exposed, they'd never seen an elephant, so they don't know what an elephant is. So they had one hold its tail, and the blind person said the elephant is like a strong rope, and another grabbed its ear and said, no, it's like a really strong, pliable palm leaf. Another grabbed its belly and says, no, it's like a great wall. And one grabbed its leg, and so it said, "No, it's like a trunk of a tree." And so, if you step back and look at all these theories, they're all part of the puzzle. They're all valid, and they all contribute to early aging, and they're part of this matrix of what leads to excessive aging. So, free radical damage, we know, is associated with early aging. So, eating foods that promote free radical damage, a lot of fried foods, a lot of foods that are nutrient poor and full of the wrong types of fats and promote inflammation leads to a lot of free radical damage. On the flip side, eating a diet rich in colorful fruits and vegetables and other high nutrient dense foods helps our body fortify itself from free radical damage, because these diets are very high in antioxidants. So the free radical damage theory is valid, but it's part of an overall system that leads to excessive aging. So we have basically damage theories and we have program theories, but the reality is it's like light. It's a particle in a wave. They're both valid.
Right.
So the free radical theory is one of the most popular damage theory. We also have the mitochondrial theory. The mitochondria have their own DNA. And so the mitochondria are the energy producing powerhouses of our cell. And if we don't have proper mitochondrial function, we have low energy levels, and we also make our cells more susceptible to free radical damage. So mitochondria play a huge role in fighting inflammation and fighting the aging process. And then I mentioned the telomere theory. That's a programmed theory. So these telomeres, they're at the end caps of the DNA, and every time our cells replicate, the telomeres get shorter. And with shorter telomeres, we get more errors in the expression of our DNA and in the overall structure and integrity of the DNA.
Yeah, for sure. And we also have the glycosylation in aging as well, which would be more of a damage theory, right?
Yes, yeah. So when blood sugar levels are too high, glucose can attach to proteins, and it's not a good situation at all. It's we typically see elevated cholesterol levels in people with type 2 diabetes, especially if they're poorly controlled. What happens is that when our blood sugar levels rise, the glucose can oxidize. So it's part of that free radical damage theory of aging. But the glucose can also attach itself to proteins. And on the surface of our cells, we have a lot of important proteins that act as receptor sites. So, for example, we have a receptor site on our liver cell for LDL cholesterol. LDL cholesterol, this is LDL cholesterol. It's circulating, and it binds to that receptor, and it tells the liver cell, quit making LDL cholesterol. There's plenty out there. But if that cell receptor has been glycosylated, it's like putting super glue on it. And so the LDL can't bind to that. And so what is the liver cell going to think? It's going to think, well, I'm not doing a very good job. I need to make more cholesterol. So we see elevations in cholesterol. But what happens when we have elevated blood sugar levels is just not cholesterol. We have these protein receptors for just about every physiological regulator. So what happens is that we have complete metabolic chaos when we have excessive glycosylation. And if you have metabolic chaos, then your cells become more susceptible to damage as well as improper function. So you're going to see inflammation. You're going to see cells becoming more cancerous. We're going to see them not able to protect themselves, and we're going to see excessive aging. So there are all sorts of subtle variations. We've got the sirtuin theory. We've got more program theories. They're all part of the puzzle, and all we can do is all we can do. The great thing is, just as everything seems to be interrelated on the pathology side, the disease side, or the excessive aging side. On the flip side, a lot of the things that we do to promote health work on the pathology.
Right.
Getting a good night's sleep is something that I've really been focusing on. One of the things that I do in my book is I highlight all the major classes of drugs and their impact on longevity. And David, it's amazing when you start looking at the data. When medical historians look back at the pharmacology of the drugs that we're currently using, they're gonna look. We're in the Stone Age of pharmacology, because these drugs are putting people in the grave and killing people sooner than if people went a different route. And what really brought this into focus is looking at all the drugs for sleep, sedative hypnotic drugs, the anticholinergics, the Valium-like drugs, even the newer drugs. What we know is when people start using these sleep aids, their life expectancy goes down dramatically. And you can understand why. These drugs, they interfere with the normal, natural progression of sleep. People are familiar with REM sleep, and they think that's the sign of sleep quality. We need REM sleep, but we get REM sleep at the end of deep sleep. So we start out when we fall asleep, we're in stage 1 sleep, and we progressively have a slowing of our brain waves down to what's called stage 4 sleep. It's at that deeper level of sleep that our cells are regenerating, they're cleansing, we're removing harmful compounds, we're repairing all the damage that's been done, we're recharging those cells with energy, and that helps us live longer. It helps us live better because we have more cellular energy and our cells are freer. These are bad drugs for longevity. Acetaminophen, Tylenol. We have 50 million Americans using acetaminophen on a weekly basis. This drug is a killer. It should not be on the market any longer. It is a poison. It's a cellular poison. And one of the things that it does is it depletes our cells of an important antioxidant called glutathione. Glutathione is absolutely critical during this pandemic, and it's absolutely critical for us to live a long, healthy life. Acetaminophen, it depletes our cells of glutathione, and fortunately, we can avoid it. And if we need to boost glutathione, there's a lot of strategies to do it. Even basic antioxidant therapy, vitamin C, and eating a diet rich in not only glutathione, but also other dietary antioxidants. And then, taking a supplement like N-acetylcysteine can also boost glutathione levels. But I think when all is said and done, we're going to see that we can improve our life expectancy just by avoiding some of these drugs. PPIs, proton pump inhibitors lead to early death. The data is just overwhelming. We need a new approach, and that's the approach that you promote, and that's the approach that I promote, because it's the future and it's rational. So we need to understand that something that we take is either inert, not doing anything, or it's doing us harm, or it's doing us good. We need to avoid some things that are doing us harm on a very large scale. And on the flip side, we need to, on a very large scale, focus on those things that do our body good. And that's why you're focused on this topic, and that's why you're passionate about your approach, because it's doing a person's body good. And
for sure,
the more good that we do, the longer that person's going to live, and the less inflammation they're going to have, and the better they're going to live now.
Yeah, so true. We're really focusing on getting to the root cause and keeping inflammation under control. I tell people all the time, inflammation, it's kind of like having a fire in your fireplace. When the fire is in your fireplace, it's beautiful, it's wonderful. It just brings out the beauty of your room. But if you go and you pour gasoline on it and now the fire starts going up your walls, that's not a good thing. And that's really what most people are doing. We need some level of inflammation. It's all part of the healing process. However, if we have lifestyle activities that are pouring gasoline on that, then we are accelerating the aging process, and we're creating, this process of, inflammaging. Now, what are your thoughts on senescent cells, kind of these older cells that, have just hung around in our system? This is another theory of aging, is that our body we haven't been able to get rid of these certain cells that are older, that aren't functioning well. A lot of them are immune cells too. Mm-hmm. And they tend to be hyperactive and promote more inflammation in the system. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we have these garbage collectors in our body, macrophages, that are responsible for, getting rid of harmful particles, microbes, and cellular debris. So that's on a larger scale. And there's a theory of aging that relates to macrophage function. It's a very important part of it. Inside of our cells, we have a different process. It's called autophagy, and the eating of oneself. And when that is disrupted, then we have an accumulation of cellular debris or garbage. And so it's like, to imagine what happens in your house if you never took out your garbage. Never. After a year, that would be just horrendous. And, that's what we have. That's an accelerated aging environment, is when you have way too much cellular debris. The cells are full of these byproducts, toxins that it can't get rid of. And that's another very important part of the aging process. And the solution is to focus on those things that can help with autophagy. And again, it's the things that we're talking about. It's the things that promote cleansing, drinking enough water, staying well hydrated, flooding your body with important nutrients for the mitochondria, because improved mitochondrial function improves the process of autophagy. We want to utilize various phytochemicals that can help fight the inflammatory process, because a lot of these compounds that get stuck in cells, these are inflammatory molecules or compounds that have been damaged by inflammation. So by extinguishing the fire and then getting rid of the debris, we go a long way in helping that autophagy improve itself. And then, one of your areas of expertise, I think that's one of the key values of fasting and even intermittent fasting, is you get improved detoxification on a global scale, but also on the cellular level, you're getting improved autophagy. And it's kind of like a process. You got to believe that the body has some sort of internal wisdom in knowing what cells to get rid of. And, we want to shed the cells that are damaged or not functioning up to par or are too old. It just, we got to get rid of them. We got to replace them. And that comes through all these measures that we're talking about: diet, lifestyle, exercise, different strategies like intermittent fasting, and supporting ourselves with proper dietary supplementation.
Yeah, for sure. And you had mentioned mitochondrial nutrients. What are your top nutrients for mitochondrial health?
Well, I'm a big fan of flavonoids. Flavonoids are plant pigments, and these plant pigments are about 8,000 different flavonoids, and they have slightly different effects. But as a class of compounds, they're noted for their biological response modifying effects. And what this means is they modify our response to the environment. This is noted by their anti-inflammatory, antiviral, anti-cancer, antioxidant, and anti-aging effects. So, it starts with diet, eating a high flavonoid-rich diet. Berries, greens, legumes. Red kidney beans have more flavonoids than blueberries per serving. Wow. So It's not just the berries, and everybody can afford some red kidney beans in their diet. And then citrus and a lot of the medicinal herbs are rich in flavonoids. So I like flavonoid-rich extracts. I like all the kind of the cellular energizers. So things like coenzyme Q10, PQQ, carnitine, alpha lipoic acid, pantethine. Those are really important for mitochondrial function. I particularly love PQQ. PQQ stands for pyroquinoline quinone, and it'll eventually be recognized as a vitamin. It wasn't discovered as essential to human nutrition or mammalian nutrition until 1984, but now we know that it is absolutely critical to mitochondrial function and mitochondrial genesis, the formation of new mitochondria, and it works very well in combination with vitamin, I should say with CoQ10.
Right.
So I like it. I could geek out and talk about some other anti-aging nutrients, but I really, for mitochondrial enhancement, my go-to combination would be CoQ10 and PQQ.
Okay.
Yeah, what are 200 milligrams of the ubiquinol form for CoQ10 and 20 milligrams per day of PQQ. This is a really effective combination. They've done animal studies and human studies, and one of the things they noted in the human study was kind of an immediate effect on improving mental function. And when we're looking at improving mental function, it's a very hard parameter to measure and show benefit in a short period of time. Usually it takes months, maybe 6 months or a year to see improvements in some of these mental function tests. But within 4 weeks of taking that dosage of PQQ and CoQ10, they showed improvements. And in 8 weeks, the improvements were even more noticeable. So I like it because if you can help people see the improvement, it really helps them understand the value of these nutrients. A lot of the things we recommend, people can't feel. I mean, vitamin C has been shown to be dramatic in its ability to reduce cataract formation. Lutein's been shown to be helpful against macular degeneration. But when you're 40 years old and you're bolstering your vitamin C and lutein stores, you're not going to feel or see any benefit there. But you are doing good, and that's what people have to have faith with.
Yeah. What is the mechanism for PQQ? How is it synergizing with the CoQ10? Is it together they're increasing the cellular energy produced by the mitochondria?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I think that PQQ is an interesting compound. It's found in intergalactic dust. And it may be the spark of life because it's critical to mitochondrial function. It just like CoQ10 is, but people are familiar with CoQ10, but maybe they haven't heard of PQQ. So it's necessary for the production of energy. And so without it, or without sufficient stores, you're going to be low energy. But listen to this. So every time an antioxidant acts as an antioxidant, that's called a catalytic cycle. So some antioxidants are very cheap, meaning that they only work for a couple of cycles, like vitamin C only works for 2 to 4 catalytic cycles. So it's not very efficient. PQQ, it works through over 40,000 catalytic cycles. Now, what is our cellular energy? It's our ATP stores. And, our body makes about 150 pounds of ATP a day, some huge amount, and it gets utilized as energy. So think about it's like a little mini nuclear reactor going on in our mitochondria. And in that process, there are a lot of free radicals or pro-oxidants being spun off. So PQQ, it's like the most valuable mitochondrial antioxidant because it can be used over and over again. And the cells really hold on to it because it's so valuable. So I think it's twofold. One, it's involved in energy production. And two, it's critical for protecting the mitochondria. And we've talked about how mitochondrial function is really key to having cellular energy, protecting our cells from damage, and living longer.
Yeah, real fascinating there with PQQ. I'm gonna have to look into that more.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some anti-inflammatory herbs. So you mentioned acetaminophen as, being a toxic drug that, obviously 50 million Americans, I believe you said, are taking that right now. What are some things they could take instead if they're dealing with pain, inflammation, swelling?
Yeah, I'm going to start off by talking about ginger. It's easy to go right to curcumin, but ginger and curcumin are in the same family. There are over 100 double-blind, placebo-controlled studies showing ginger in various forms can reduce pain and inflammation as effectively as something like acetaminophen or a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. Over 100 studies, human clinical studies. So getting more ginger in your diet. And I like fresh ginger, juice it, have ginger shots, but even in the dry powdered form has been shown to be effective. Get more ginger in your diet, juice, ginger shots, ginger tea, ginger. It's great for reducing inflammation. As far as herbal approaches for reducing inflammation, curcumin is at the top of everyone's list. But the problem with regular curcumin is it's poorly absorbed. You really have to use an enhanced form of curcumin. The two best forms are theracurmin and Meriva. So theracurmin and Meriva are the two that I recommend. And we know that we have an effective dose with those forms. The therapeutic effect of any natural product or drug is based upon delivering an effective dose.
Right.
And the best measure of an effective dose is a clinical response. So these are the two most well-studied forms of curcumin. So the dosage I recommend for reducing inflammation with theracurmin is 180 milligrams per day. For Meriva, it's 2,000 milligrams per day. Now, we were talking about showing benefit in brain function. UCLA did a study that was published last year. It was a study in people with early stage Alzheimer's disease or dementia. And they looked at all the available forms of curcumin and they tested them. And the form that they settled on in using in their trial was this theracurmin. And the results that they produced in this study are amazing. They not only showed improvement in mental function tests, but they also showed significant improvement in brain scans. So it's not just improving the function, it's reversing some of the pathological changes that occur in early stage dementia. So I like 180 milligrams of theracurmin or 2,000 milligrams of Meriva each day as part of an anti-aging strategy. It reduces inflammation throughout the body, but these two forms have been shown to be especially effective at reducing inflammation in the brain. And when we first started talking about this, I said this is a key area of concern. The brain is the most metabolically active tissue that we have in our body. So it's going to show the effects of aging if we don't protect it and enhance its function. And the way we do that, again, getting enough sleep, getting exercise, and then taking proper supplementation. By the way, I got to throw this in there. There's only been one new anatomical discovery, I think, in the last 50 years in humans. And it was the discovery that we actually have lymphatic vessels in our brain. Right. And so exercise is a way of cleansing that. And I particularly I read that, and I'm a bit older than you, but in the 70s, getting a rebounder was really popular for promoting lymphatic flow. Now, I don't think you need a rebounder. I do jumping jacks. I do what's called starfish jumps, where you're squatting down and then jumping up and reaching up as high as you can.
Yep.
I like the starfish jumps. That's a great way to cleanse the brain. We talked about autophagy. If your brain is not cleansing these toxic compounds, it's promoting inflammation. If you promote inflammation in the brain, you produce tau proteins and beta amyloid. I said earlier that when I was just starting to study medicine, the rate of Alzheimer's disease in people over the age of 80 was 2%. Now it's over 50%. So we have more toxins in our environment. We have greater obesity and type 2 diabetes. That, coupled with people possibly living longer, means that we're going to see a rise in Alzheimer's disease. And that's what we've seen. And I think we want to reduce that inflammaging so that we don't build up those toxins, but we also have to cleanse those toxins. And exercise is really critical. Getting a good night's sleep is absolutely critical. I think you could do everything else right, but if you're not sleeping well and you're not exercising, it's at a disadvantage. So we got to figure out ways to help those people that maybe are immobilized. We got to keep that lymph flowing.
That's right. So important, that glymphatic system in the brain. Yeah. And sleep is really the main way that we activate that glymphatic system and drain out toxins in the brain. It's so important. You mentioned how so many people are taking sleep medications.
Yeah, it's amazing.
They limit the glymphatic flow.
Yeah, and when we talk about inflammaging, we should also mention GARB aging, because that's another theory. I mentioned the importance of the macrophages, but again, if we're not cleansing the collection of intracellular waste, or GARB aging, is another contributing. So we talked about a bunch of different aspects associated with aging. We talked about the free radical damage theory. We talked about the mitochondrial theory. We talked about the telomere shortening theory, which is a program theory as well as a damage theory. We talked about inflammaging, GARB aging. These are just some of the facets, some of the angles of aging that we can deal with and improve. And when we do that, it just helps the whole system work better, the whole matrix work better.
Yeah, for sure. And what would you consider the most nutrient dense foods that people should have in their diet on a regular basis?
Well, I people always ask me what I take and what I eat. There are certain foods that I eat on a daily basis. I eat berries. They're low glycemic load. I eat a lot of berries. I like green leafy vegetables. I try to have a big salad every day. I mix it up. I think nuts and seeds don't get enough credit. They're rich in all sorts of nutrients, and I like the whole concept of eating something that can grow into a massive tree. I mean, when I was a kid, this time of year, we ate all sorts of nuts because we had them. I grew up in Southern Oregon. We had great nuts. We had hazelnuts, we had walnuts, we had pecans. And they were growing in our yards, and we would we'd collect them and process them. We'd have to crack them ourselves. But I think that's a good process too, because it slows down the eating of them, because it's a lot of work to get those nuts liberated.
Yeah, you can get a bag of cashews and just down that thing. But if you gotta break it open, if you gotta de-shell it, you're gonna limit the amount you can eat.
Oh yeah. I loved all these nuts, but it was a lot of work, for little fingers, it was a lot of work. But yeah, so I eat at least a quarter to a third of a cup of nuts, and I vary it. because nuts are a food that you don't want to eat the same nut every day. They're very nutrient dense, and you want to make sure that you have a variety of different nuts so that you can take advantage of their high nutrient density, but not become overloaded in some micronutrients and under loaded in others. So so for example, Brazil nuts are very high in selenium. So if you ate only Brazil nuts, it's not a good thing. You got to mix it up. And the same thing with berries. I don't eat the same berries every day. I mix it up, and I think eating more variety in our food is really a key factor. I don't know if you have Deanna Minnick talking about the rainbow diet, but we all talk about the importance of these plant pigments and eating a variety of different colors throughout the week and not relying on the same foods over and over and over again. We are meant to enjoy the bounty of nature, and these different plant pigments have different effects on our body. So the more varied your diet, the greater the health benefits, the greater the diversity in your microbiome, and that produces its own downstream health benefits, and the more benefits in protecting our cells from free radical and other types of damage.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we talked about anti-inflammatory herbs. We talked about mitochondrial support nutrients. Any other supplements that you see to be very helpful for people when it comes to reducing inflammaging?
Well, we didn't talk about eating the right types of fats, and fats are really critical. So, staying away from fats that promote aging and promote inflammation. For most people, that means getting away from meat and dairy and sources of omega-6 fatty acids. So staying away from your common vegetable oil, soy, safflower, sunflower, corn, and focus, more on the monounsaturated fats like olive oil, avocado oil. I think canola has been given a bad name, but I think organic canola is fine. So we get those cooking aspects, and then eating cold water fish. Not just, people think that just means salmon, but inexpensive sources are sardines and anchovies, mackerel, herring. I think everybody can afford to increase their omega-3 fatty acids. And then for me, helping people get on a foundation supplement program is a key to making sure they have the kind of their bases covered in terms of micronutrients. So what that means is a high potency multiple vitamin and mineral formula, extra vitamin D3, I think 4,000 to 5,000 IUs per day right now. I like some sort of plant-based antioxidant, either a grapeseed extract or curcumin is a great one. Pine bark extract. These all have some overlap, but some sort of plant-based antioxidant, super greens formula, something like that. And then lastly, a good high quality pharmaceutical grade fish oil, and take at least 2,000 milligrams of long chain omega-3 fatty acids a day. So not 2,000 milligrams of the fish oil, but 2,000 milligrams of EPA, DHA, DPA, and these omega-3 fatty acids. And I think that was the only thing I think I missed sharing. But fats are really critical for, this is an interesting thing to bring up. I'm very concerned about people being on a ketogenic diet long term, and let me explain why. One of the anti-aging theories has to do with sirtuins, and these are compounds that play a huge role in cellular energy production and regulating it, and also regulating insulin sensitivity and helping to support the body's anti-inflammatory mechanisms. And what they've shown, and the question is, when you read studies, they lump a high-fat diet together they don't seem to discern healthy fat or unhealthy fat. But my key recommendation in people that are eating a ketogenic diet is you got to focus on those health promoting fats. If your ketogenic diet is too full of saturated fats and omega-6 fatty acids, I think you're going to shut down that sirtuin activity, and that's going to accelerate cellular aging. And I think that's the reason. If you look at population-based studies, they've shown that a low carbohydrate, high fat diet had the worst effect on our lifespan. It was more detrimental than a high carbohydrate diet, high sugar diet, which we know this is counterintuitive, right? Because so I think it's the type of fat. So fat choices are really critical for health and for fighting inflammation and fighting the aging process. So we've highlighted the good fats, monounsaturated fats. If you're going to have some saturated fats, MCTs, your best choice. Second best, maybe a little bit of coconut oil, and then focus on those long chain and short chain omega-3 fatty acids, nuts and seeds, cold water fish, and long chain omega-3 fatty acid supplementation.
Very good. Very good. Very thorough interview here. And we really covered the topic of inflammation well. And guys, check out Dr. Murray's book, right? So remember, it is The Longevity Matrix, How to Live Better, Stronger, and Longer. So check that out, guys. And you can check out his website, drmurray.com. And thanks so much. Any last words of inspiration for our audience?
I know that they're going to hear lots of different approaches, and just value all that's being presented, and just go with what resonates best with you. But this is an important topic. You have to get inflammation under control. We have measures of inflammation. You can monitor yourself, and you can see how you are responding to these programs that are being recommended. And just keep at it. Life is to be lived with good health. So make that your primary goal. And God bless. Those are my closing words.
All right. Thanks again, Dr. Murray. Appreciate your time, and just want to acknowledge your depth of knowledge and your ability to really communicate that well for our audience. So thanks so much. And guys, we'll see you on a future interview. Be blessed.